Pope Francis has died, and here I am going to answer you what happens when a pope dies. I will explain the Vatican protocol step by step, and what are the main candidates to be elected in the conclave. And also I'm going to tell you who the new pope will be, according to artificial intelligence and the witches I've consulted. And you'll be able to know before anyone else who will sit on the throne of St. Peter according to these predictions. I am the documentarian and this is protocol. Francisco. The death of a pope is one of the most solemn and significant events in the Catholic Church. Not only does it represent the end of a pontificate, but also the beginning of a rigorous protocol that combines centuries of tradition with adjustments of the modern era. In this video, I'm going to tell you in detail what this process is like, what recent changes there have been, and how the new leader of the Church is chosen after the death of the Supreme Pontiff. Let's start confirmation of death. Traditionally, the death of a pope is confirmed with a very symbolic rite. The Camerlengo, a key figure in this process, gently taps the pontiff's forehead with a small silver hammer, calling him by his baptismal name. If there was no response, his death was officially declared, but this rite is no longer used. In November of 2024, Pope Francis decided to update the papal funeral protocol with a new document called Ordo Exequiarum. Roman pontiffs, where formalities that he considered unnecessary or anachronistic are eliminated. Therefore, now death is verified in a simpler way in the private chapel of the Apostolic Palace, without a silver hammer or ancient rituals. This modification is part of Pope Francis's desire to simplify the Vatican pomp and bring it closer to a more human tone. What happens next? Once death is confirmed, the Vatican enters a state called Sede Vacante. This means that the throne of St. Peter is empty, and all the machinery for preparing for the funeral and the election of the new pope is activated. First, the pope's body is prepared for his wake. Unlike the traditional procedure, which included 3 coffins, one of cypress, another of zinc, and another of walnut. The new protocol establishes the use of a single wooden coffin with an internal zinc lining. The use of the catafalque, an elevated structure where the body used to be placed for public veneration, as well as the inclusion of the papal staff, was also eliminated. The coffin will be moved directly to St. Peter's Basilica, where it will be on display for the faithful to pay their respects. The body will not be embalmed and its image will be respected as it was in life. Following the example of Pope Benedict XVI in 2022, the Pope's funeral mass will be held in St. Peter's Square and will be presided over by the Dean of the College of Cardinals, since there is no acting Pope. This is a ceremony full of symbolism which can last several hours and usually includes the presence of political and religious leaders from around the world. Francisco also asked that during his funeral, titles such as Holy Father or Sovereign of the Vatican State not be used, and that instead he be remembered as Bishop of Rome and Shepherd of the people of God. This gesture is consistent with his entire vision of a humble papacy and less associated with earthly power. Another important novelty, Francisco wrote that he does not want to be buried in the Vatican grottos, where most of the popes rest. Instead, he asked to be buried in the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore, a church very dear to him, where he used to go to pray before and after each apostolic journey. 4. The role of the Camerlengo. During the Sede Vacante, the most important figure in the Vatican is the Camerlengo. This person is in charge of temporarily administering the Church's assets and ensuring the continuity of the most basic functions of the Vatican state. But without intervening in doctrinal decisions, the Camerlengo also seals the Pope's quarters, destroys his fisherman's ring, a symbol of his authority, and calls the cardinals for the meetings prior to the conclave. He is also responsible for coordinating all the funeral preparations and for guarding the Vatican secrets during that delicate period. 5. The election of the new Pope. The conclave between 9 and 15 days after the death of the Pope, the conclave begins. This is the process by which the cardinals elect the new pontiff. It takes place in the Sistine Chapel, and only cardinals under 80 years old can participate, which currently total around 120 electors. Once inside, the cardinals are isolated from the outside world. They cannot use cell phones or have contact with anyone outside the Vatican. All of this is done to ensure the purity of the process and avoid external influences. During the voting, each cardinal writes the name of his chosen one on a piece of paper, folds it, and deposits it in an urn. 2/3 of the votes are required for there to be a new pope. If that majority is not reached, it can take up to 4 votes per day, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. The ballots are burned at the end of each day. If the smoke that comes out of the chimney is black, it means there is no consensus. But if it is white, the famous white smoke, that indicates that a new pope has been chosen. 6. We have a pope. Once chosen, the new pope is taken to the special room, called the Room of Tears, where he can take a moment to meditate and dress in the papal robes. He then goes to the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, where the Cardinal Protodeacon presents him to the world with the traditional announcement. I announce to you a great joy, we have a pope. And so begins a new chapter in the history of the Church. 7. Changes that mark a new era. The changes introduced by Pope Francis are not minor. They represent a symbolic shift towards a church, less invested in the symbols of power and more focused on humility and service. The fact of dispensing with the silver hammer, the triple coffin, the catafalque, and the titles of power is quite a statement of intent. 8. And now what? With the Catholic Church once again in the hands of the College of Cardinals, a new stage opens. The general congregations prior to the conclave serve to debate the state of the Church and the challenges it faces. The secularization in Europe, the growth of Catholicism in Africa and Asia, the abuse scandals, and the need for internal reforms. The cardinals arrive at the conclave not only with the mission of electing a new leader, but with the responsibility of setting the course for more than 1,300,000,000 faithful around the world. The death of a pope is always a historic moment, but in the case of Pope Francis, it also marks a before and after, in the way the Catholic Church relates to its traditions, with its funeral protocol reforms, its decision to rest in a Marian church, and its insistence on stripping itself of symbols of power. Francis has left a legacy of humility, closeness, and service. Now the whole world watches closely as the Church prepares for the next chapter. A new pope will be chosen. But the echo of Francis, with his simplicity, his love for the poor, and his pastoral style, will surely resonate in every corner of the Vatican for a long time. But who will be the next pope? This investigation began at the end of last year. Certain predictions anticipated that Francis could end his papacy in 2025 either by resignation or, as unfortunately happened, by his death. So I had to find out who his successor would be and share it with you. So I decided to pit artificial intelligence against the predictions of one of the witch groups I have. And while I already made a video with the results at the beginning of the year, the occasion warrants me telling you again. The witches and artificial intelligence predict who will be the new pope. I asked this question to a group of witches who are followers of my channel and to artificial intelligence. I asked them to choose from 8 possible candidates to succeed Francis in 2025, the next pope of the church. The idea, besides satisfying my curiosity about a very likely future event, was to compare and confront new technologies with old ways. To predict events. I anticipate that both the witches and artificial intelligence chose different people as Francisco's successor. But stay until the end, because you'll be in for a surprise. Do you want to find out who will be the next pope? Or at least want to know who has more power to predict the future? The 8 candidates were pre-selected by me from the cardinals, with the most mentions in specialized media around the world. And when I refer to the world, I'm not just limiting us to the West. Then I presented this list to those who are going to compete to try to predict the next pope. On one hand, the artificial intelligence ChatGPT from OpenAI, and on the other hand, the Coven of Witches, that I keep on WhatsApp for reciprocal consultations in order to add material to my channel. Of which, after performing various rituals, divination techniques, or simply using their intuition, 15 of them dared to vote and decided on a winner. Who were the 8 candidates? Here I present them to you. Jean-Marc Avelin from France, Archbishop of Marseille, has stood out in interreligious dialogue and his commitment to marginalized communities. This makes him a strong contender. Luis Antonio Tacal from the Philippines, prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, is the young and dynamic face of Asian Catholicism with a global missionary focus. Peter Turkson from Ghana, former prefect of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. He is a reference in social justice and environmental issues, embodying the spirit of a global and active church in the world's problems. Victor Manuel Fernandez from Argentina, current prefect of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. He is close to Pope Francis and considered the architect of many of his reforms, a progressive theologian with a strong pastoral vision. Matteo Supiitalia, Archbishop of Bologna and President of the Italian Episcopal Conference, has acted as a mediator in international conflicts. His charisma, diplomatic experience, and leadership position him as a clear favorite. Fridolin Ambongo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Archbishop of Kinshasa, is a human rights advocate and a key leader in Africa. Christoph Schönborn, Austria, Archbishop of Vienna. His moderation and theological erudition make him a consensus figure among the different currents of the Church. Robert Seraguinia, former prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments, represents the most conservative current. His doctrinal firmness makes him the favorite of those seeking a more traditional church. For the witches, it was a close election. To them, I only provided them with the numbered photographs of the 8 candidates so that their choice would not be contaminated with information, but would be based on their powers. With 6 votes to the winner, the witches have undoubtedly chosen Francisco's successor, and this is Peter Turkson. Yes, born on October 11, 1948 in Waso, Nensuta. He's a cardinal and prelate of the Catholic Church, known for his outstanding work as an African ecclesiastical leader. He was the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Cape Coast. From 1992 to 2009 and in 2003, Pope John Paul II appointed him cardinal. Throughout his career, Turkson has held significant roles in the Roman Curia, serving as the president of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace between 2009 and 2017, and the first prefect of the Dicastery for the Promotion of Integral Human Development between 2017 and 2021. Acclaimed for his energy and vision, he has been considered a serious candidate. With a robust academic background, including studies in theology and sacred scriptures, Turkson is multilingual, nominating several languages, among them English, French, German, Hebrew, and Latin. His influence extends beyond the borders of Ghana, being known for his work in ecclesiastical diplomacy, as in the case of mediation in the Ivory Coast conflict. In 2011, after finishing his term as prefect of the Dicastery in 2021 and 2022, he was appointed Chancellor of the Americas, Pontifical Sciences, continuing his service to the Church and humanity. Congratulations, Kana. Do the witches favor you? However, ChatGPT analyzed millions of data in 1,000th of a second to develop a solid response based on logical parameters. And without a doubt, he was chosen among the 8 to be the next pope to succeed Francis, and this is Matteo Zuppi from Italy. Matteo Maria Zuppi, born in Rome on October 11, 1955, is an Italian archbishop, theologian, humanist, and diplomat. He was ordained a priest in 1981 and has held various ecclesiastical positions, including Auxiliary Bishop of Rome in 2012, Archbishop of Bologna in 2015, and President of the Italian Episcopal Conference in 2022. He is also the Grand Prior of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem in the Emilia-Romagna region. Zuppi has been a significant diplomat, participating in peace mediations such as in Mozambique during the Civil War and in humanitarian missions in various parts of the world, including Ukraine, Russia, and China. He was made a cardinal by Pope Francis in 2019, and in his role as president of the Italian Episcopal Conference continues to be a key figure in the Catholic Church. I leave you with a rather unsettling fact. There is a huge rift in the Vatican. There are those who have a progressive approach and identify with the reforms and with Pope Francis. And there are the Orthodox, who at this point are on the verge of a nervous breakdown, millimeters away from disobedience. Many believe that if another progressive is elected, it could trigger another rupture in Catholicism, so important that it could well be called a civil war. While if they choose a guardian of orthodoxy as a successor, it would start a hunt and cleanup of reforms and progressive cardinals, which would give the same result. A fierce battle for the fate of Catholics. But that's not all. We have to add the multiple prophecies that we have discussed on this channel. None of them are too encouraging. I would say they usually give us the same warning sign as the future election, and this is Attention. The Vatican may fall. I want to conclude this video by sending heartfelt condolences to the thousands of followers who are going to miss the physical presence of Pope Francis, but also to all the members of my channel. I am the documentarian, and this was Protocol. Francisco